What's up, Strength House Nation? We've got episode 16 of the Strength House podcast here for you tonight. We've got a special guest, Frank Duffy of Cressey Sports Performance, and we're going to chat with Frank about how he programs and coaches for his strength camps at Cressey Sports Performance, as well as functional range conditioning and how it's impacted him as a coach and a lifter. And of course, we've got two amazing beers that Frank risked life and limb to get for us. Stay tuned. The Strength House Podcast, featuring Greg Robbins and Tony Bonvecchio.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Strength House Podcast, episode 16. We are live in Strength House Studios, and once again, we have a full house. I have Tony B next to me, as always, and we have a special guest host from Cressey Sports Performance, Strength Camp Extraordinaire, New York's own Frank Duffy Fitness. And we are giving a new producer a trial run tonight. We are replacing Irish Josh with intern, we need a nickname for you.
Callie Kate.
Kate.
That's it.
I mean, wouldn't
Kate
Irish
Cali?
Kate work?
We're going to call her Irish Kate because her last name is Ireland. So it was tough to decline the offer to be the new producer with the Irish link still alive.
It panned out well for us first time around.
So, pending not burning the Strength House Studios down, I think it could go well. So,
She did bring beef jerky.
brought beef jerky.
Good start.
So, Irish Kate will be checking in on all the comments tonight on Instagram and Facebook. So, if you have any questions, fire away. We have several topics tonight. A little bit of group training people, more middle-aged people as well, and couple stories out here, a lot of different things.
Might not be related to training,
but we'll try to keep it as training related as possible. And we have some really great beers tonight.
Really, really great. And whenever I get flustered and think, like, the hell are we going to talk about, I always am encouraged by the fact that we break the ice by cracking a beer.
Yeah, that's true. When all else fails, we have beer. And beer is what brought us here tonight. Well, beer is what created this podcast to begin with, but
We need an excuse to drink during the week.
I'm
Not by
struggling
ourselves.
to open the cooler.
It's only one zipper that works.
I think I closed it with the wrong zipper.
there we go. We're off to a hot start, folks.
All right, so
Literally hot. It's about 105 degrees in here.
This
Yeah.
has become the Strength House sauna up here in the attic.
we haven't installed AC in the studios yet, but we will soon. The other thing we forgot to do is set up our microphone tonight, but
Oh, yeah. God. Well,
Well.
they can still hear us.
they can still hear
Hey,
us.
where's the can with the...
Yeah, we need one more 36.
Oh, did I screw up?
No. It's the one without a
I
label
did.
on it.
Yeah, I gotta go down and get it.
There we go.
Are you sure? There should be one more in there.
I replaced it with a different beer.
Oh, man.
All right,
Anyways,
screw
well,
it up.
Well, Greg is
We have a bye week and everything. You couple.
It was literally the one without the label.
not mid-season form. Anyways, while Greg is retrieving the third beer, since we got three hosts tonight, we'll fill you guys in on what we're doing. So tonight's first beer is from Treehouse. Big surprise. We've got the Curiosity Series 36. So we featured these on here before. Rotating series by Treehouse. Basically, they take one of their normal, regular rotating beers, change the recipe a little bit, release it to the public, and this was the first time since we've been involved with the craft beer to the degree that we are. They released two Curiosity Series in the same week, so we're going to do them both tonight.
Yep.
And Frank Duffy proved himself to be a true American hero and
Hero's
tracked
journey.
them both down when Greg and I were shackled to the training floor, unable to break away and go get the beer.
So if you want to get on the podcast, you got to bring
Yeah.
two separate flavors pretty much to the table.
That is the ticket. So as we crack this beer open and give it a little taste, Frank, why don't you kind of tell us about your week in beer retrieving? I know that it ended with a bit of drama.
It did indeed. Thursday night, I'm working the front desk. No, this was Friday. I'm sorry. Thursday, we found out that C36 got released. Tony's locked to the desk. Is that the day you hurt your hip?
It was there, man.
So Tony blew out his hip putting a deadlift back down, and Greg was swamped with assessments and whatnot as well. So I was the lone survivor essentially, and I had to go pick up C36, and they did 6-can release. So I got there, nothing crazy, about 6:30. Line's about 400 people deep. I was like, oh, shit, they're going to sell out. And I get to about 4 or 5 people from the door, and a guy comes out, one of the workers, and he's like, I have an announcement. And we're like, oh, shit, he's going to tell us they sold out. And it was just someone was parked in the loading dock, so that was a bit of anxiety relieved. So we got 6:36s on the first day.
6:36.
6:36s on Thursday. Friday strolls around. They said that 2 cans were being released, alter ego, 2 per person, and we're like, all right, that's pretty weird. And these guys aren't in on Friday. You were at Tilted Barn Friday, right?
I was.
Yeah. And Greg was
also
New
losing
Hampshire?
my mind.
Friday. I had to go to a wedding.
Yeah.
Was that a family wedding?
So these guys were out of commission again, and I had to stick around till 5:30 on Fridays, and there was also a mentorship at the gym while all this was going on. One of my buddies was there, and I needed to bring him back to my house because he left all his stuff at my house like an idiot. If you're watching, Ricky, I love you. So it takes half an hour to get from the gym to my house, 6:30-ish at that point, and then we get on the road to get to Treehouse because they close at 8. And the 3 main highways around here were all backed up with traffic, and it literally took me throughout the entire state of Massachusetts through back roads to get to Monson, where Treehouse is located. By the way, for people that aren't into beer, you probably think we're nuts that we travel 2 hours round trip for 12 cans weekly. But until you experience a Treehouse, you really don't understand what you're missing out on. And so it's an hour and a half trip to get to Monson. We get there at 8:20. They close at 8 o'clock. I'm like, oh my God. The door was closed when we got there. It's like, this is not good. The door's going to be locked. No one's going to be there. I come up to the front door. I go like this. I'm like, cut off. And the first guy that I see, he says, yeah, you're cut off. I'm like, shit, we just drove an hour and a half for no reason. And then someone else came by and waved at us to come in. And it was the lowest low and the highest high in a matter of about 20 seconds. And it was me, 3 other guys from out of town, and I told them nothing. I hyped up Treehouse to the greatest extent possible, and they said that they could vouch for it as well. So if you can't, we don't make any commission off of it. If you could get to Treehouse, by all means, get out there.
Yeah, not yet. Maybe the first sponsor
Greg
of the
does.
podcast.
So yeah, about 6 hours of traveling for these guys.
But I tell you what, worth
Cheers.
every second of travel, and Duffy, God bless you.
This is delicious.
This is 36, right?
C36, as you can see here.
Yeah. We got a non-labeled C36, which I feel like is like
That could be a Julius for all you know, King Julius.
Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card.
So here's a trivia question for you guys. Why does the bottom of this can say, "You may say I'm a dreamer"?
It's a song lyric. I don't know what though.
It's John Lennon. Or I imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is the importance of 6/15, June 15th, to that song?
That was the day he was murdered, right?
That's the day that Yoko Ono claimed the rights that she wrote that song.
Oh, okay. Sorry. The reason that John Lennon's murder is fresh in my head because I just watched Forrest Gump. And, the scene in Forrest Gump where he goes on the talk show and basically coaxes all the lyrics to that song out of John Lennon.
Look at that. Fun
That's
fact.
a long movie.
It's one of my favorites. It's my probably my favorite movie
I
that's
watched that recently.
doesn't have sharks or dinosaurs in it.
Yeah, but it's got Tom Hanks.
Right.
Which is pretty cool.
Close third.
All right. So while we're enjoying this beer that almost wasn't.
No, this one was.
Was this
37 was.
This wasn't the.
Was this released the same day as Alter Ego? Or
Yeah, Alter Ego in green.
it's got a lot of Alter Ego taste.
And a lot of people are comparing it to Julius as well, and we know Alter Ego is an offshoot of Julius.
Yeah. I would like to taste this side by side.
I'm still in the phase whether it's good or bad. They're pretty in depth with their beer terminology.
And we've been trying to wean ourselves off of just all the beer talk. We did a couple episodes without a beer fact. We've done away with the top 10, which takes 15 minutes.
Oh, that's
at
not
the
a
end of
thing
every
anymore?
episode.
Well, we got an announcement at the end. It is not a thing anymore.
I haven't
I'm
been
tired.
checking in for the last month. Sorry, I have to work.
And
Pretty
that's
early
exactly
Wednesdays.
if people stop watching when they say, okay, time to rank the beers. We see like a live goes from like bam, it's like okay, nobody's watching anymore.
Pile of Crowns is one though.
But not true. And anyways, before the rest of you tune out, Let's get Frank Duffy caught up, or everybody caught up with Frank Duffy rather. So we know you pretty well, maybe too well, better than we'd like to. But why don't you fill in our audience a little bit about who you are, where you came from, what do you do here?
So originally from New York, I'm the weakest guest that they've had to date so far, including Lori Lindsay and Nancy Newell. So fun fact, pound for pound, I'm the weakest one. So it's pretty ironic that I'm here.
That's probably true.
Yeah. I'm doing carry the one. Yep.
Bonvec strength athlete, folks.
No, we're working on it.
So I'm the head coordinator of the Strength Camp program at Cressey Sports Performance. I work with the normal 9-to-5ers, everyday Joes, essentially is what we deem them. Trying to just keep an overall healthy lifestyle, trying to prevent injury as much as possible, while also trying to help them reach their goals. And that's going to be different for every person based off who walks through the doors. So I see a wide variety of people in regards to what they do, family-wise, occupation-wise, what their training goals are. So it's a wide variety of people, and I thoroughly enjoy it a lot. And it helps I also get to see that our athletes in the afternoon as well. So I get to see both sides of the fence, and it's been a pretty awesome experience so far.
And fun fact is that you got three guys, three Division II college baseball rock stars sitting at the same desk right here.
That's it.
Yeah.
Our combined batting average probably in the low 200s.
We're above the Mendoza line, I would say that.
237 probably.
Yeah.
I think I was 234. So we're solid 7-8 hole right there.
Oh, I didn't hit for average, you know.
Yeah, I did.
I always say I was a strikeout hitter who occasionally hit for power.
Nice.
I was a defensive catcher who didn't hit well.
Listen, that position, up the middle, you just need to defend.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So we got get to know a little bit about Frank, and that's going to be kind of, one of my first topics that I wanted us all to talk about was just group training in general. I think a lot of the coaches that listen have different groups that they train. It's not purely one-on-one training or even semi-private. And then a lot of listeners might be people that, train within a group setting. And I always think it's cool for people that aren't necessarily coaches but might actually be clients to hear some of the, methods behind the madness, or also just assess if they're in a program now or looking for a program. It helps them kind of figure out, what to look for. So Frank, when you train in a group setting, what are some of the biggest differences in how you have to go about setting that up, or from a programming standpoint, or your overall approach as opposed to like semi-private or one-on-one?
So when we cap out our strength camps, it's 15 people. We'll typically see 12 to 13. So when it's that wide of a variety of people, it's the best way to go about it is simple regressions and progressions for each exercise. So an example of that would be if we're doing some type of barbell squat, like a front squat, it's always very easy for me to say, all right, we're going to regress this to a kettlebell goblet squat. Or maybe instead of that barbell front squat, we'll use a 2 kettlebell front squat, just to make it a little bit easier for people to grasp the idea of positioning. That way they're able to figure out what their continuum is in regards to going forward. And it's always just trying to keep the programming as simple as possible. That way I could always say, all right, we're going one exercise up for a progression or one exercise down for a regression. Just so that people can figure out and pick and choose which exercise is best fit for them.
Okay. So, I think both of us have had some group training experience as well. That was kind of the answer I hope you give. I mean, I think one of the things I think about from a group training standpoint, whenever you make a program for a large amount of people at one time, it has to be very adaptable. Yeah. You have to be able to change it on the fly, no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, if the first person's knee hurts and the second person's shoulder, and then we got a third person with the back, it's hard to accommodate one program to everybody. So one size fits all obviously is not optimal, but if I could have just the general infrastructure of the program where everyone could follow it, and then they just modify on the fly based off what they know their limitations are, it makes it a lot easier. And it goes into some sense of an autopilot mode because they know, we go in advance into what they should stray away from, what they should focus on more, so that they understand what variation would fit them best in that point.
And what's really cool about the structure of the strength camps, which I think you kind of laid the foundation for that way back when you were in charge of it, the godfather of the strength camp, is that it's not just fat loss focused, but it's not just strength focused. You kind of hit a multitude of things. Yeah. How do you kind of organize the schedule during your 3 training days per week?
So I'll separate a squat and a deadlift variation on Monday and Friday. Wednesday's more of like our metabolic day, or I like to say movement quality day, where that's going to be a little bit less loading, and that's going to be more focusing on some of the FRC principles that I use. We'll do more time circuits on Wednesday, but then Monday and Friday are essentially our strength focus days. And if we are going heavier in regards to our volume or intensity with the squat one week, we're going to taper that down with the deadlift. So it's always checks and balances on that end, just to make sure we're not overloading people to prevent injury as much as possible at that point.
Cool.
And then after that, I literally ask strength campers, like, hey, what exercises do you like? Like, that's the most important part of my job, is trying to make it an enjoyable experience. Whether they're doing a TRX row or a chest supported row, the carryover is there going to be much difference with that? Probably not. But if I have them doing the one that they prefer to do, and then we create buy-in on that end because they have autonomy, that's going to keep them around for much longer, in my opinion. And I've seen nothing but positive feedback from that so far. So,
Cool. Variety is important. Like, we're coming from a powerlifting background, where variety can actually like get in your way.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm very hesitant to stick variety in a program, but that I'm sure is sometimes a delicate balance. Like being able to show incremental progression while still adding in enough variety to keep people interested.
Yeah, I mean, like football, we'll throw football. Friday, we'll throw the football around. I swear I'm good, guys. Where I'll have them do different footwork drills like shuffling, karaoke's, sprints, just to learn how to better control their body. But then we'll also work on hand-eye coordination by throwing the football at them. We'll do different balance drills. So it's not just strength focused. We'll do other things along those lines, just to basically make it a well-balanced training program, so that we're hitting all aspects of performance and being able to live a pain-free life.
And so you can masquerade around pretending that you're some sort of like
world-class
quarterback.
My passer rating's up there in regards to what we do on Fridays. So.
And Frank nearly, right after we said, okay, Frank, we'd love to have you come on the podcast, blah, 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 here's your great chance, your chance to shine. And then you nearly blew that chance with a completely asinine Instagram post.
It's not wrong. Look, Tom Brady, five championships, right? Until he beats Eli Manning, he's not the best of all time. You got to beat the best to be the best. He's 5-0 against anyone else that's not Eli Manning. He's 0-2 against him.
You literally won.
I'm not even going to get into this.
One fluky catch away. Like,
yeah.
Stop.
I was sitting on a couch in New York when the helmet catch happened.
I was 13.
Surrounded by the scum of that. Like, my buddy Corey literally got up, kicked the door open. He's from Ohio, so he felt my pain and screamed, "Scum of the earth!" out into the street. Like, that's how I felt.
That was a great night.
It was not a great
You are
I almost agree with you. I'm sweating pretty bad.
You are sweating your ass
I'm trying not to drink the beer at an alarmingly quick rate just to stay cool.
But the thing is, if you don't drink it fast, it's going to be boiling.
Sorry, guys.
I'm doing the best.
I'm almost done.
I'm 5'9", 240 something pounds over here. This is
what's the hop
for
profile on this? Let's see how good you guys are.
You don't know the answer.
I don't know the answer.
So there's no point commenting.
I'm just asking you whether you can figure it out or not. I don't know if it's
bring
right
back
or wrong.
the beer expert, Zach Robbins. We need you, Zach.
I don't know what the hop. That's next level. That's where we haven't.
Yeah,
I do know that Treehouse uses a bastardized English yeast.
It's a
not
combination of a few yeasts, I think.
That's probably true, but I remember hearing the term bastardized somewhere on a beer podcast, because that's what I listen to when I'm in the car.
That's good. It prepares you for this.
That's right. I do my homework. But anyways, so as you guys can tell, we're looking to improve our studio, maybe by an AC unit. So maybe it's time
I can install that. I just don't know.
But
if
it costs money. We
it's
need a
too
sponsor.
loud.
We need a sponsor.
If Frigidaire or someone like that wants to sponsor us, I don't know who makes AC. Frigidaire came to mind. I think they make fridges. But if you want to turn this room into a fridge, I would be happy with that. So we have a question coming in already. We have a shout out from a long-term client of ours, Dana, who we haven't seen in a long time. So I hope you're well. But Coach Yeti, Connor, one of our Strength House athletes, wants to direct a question towards you, Frank. He said, how can he go about starting an adult group that's not your traditional boot camp? That's
so like semi-private setting.
Well, I think I'll piggyback on it a little and say, when we originally started what are the CSP Strength Camps now, we called them excellence boot camps. not the greatest name ever,
Right.
but
Gets the job done.
the idea
the name
was-
is just the icing on the cake at that point.
yeah, the idea was, if you call it strength camps right off the bat, you might lose some people because boot camp was at the time we're talking like 6 years ago, kind of more of an approachable term.
Yeah.
You hear boot camp, then you're thinking fitness class in the morning, and then once they're in the door, do whatever the hell you want with them. It's best.
It's just getting them in the door essentially.
Right, but you still have the more traditional boot camps out there where guys are just and girls are running around like chickens with their heads cut off, doing whatever, just throw a bunch of stuff on the wall, see what sticks. So how can we go about structuring a class for adults? I guess what he's saying is has a hard start and end time within an hour. That's not your traditional boot camp.
So we typically do 10, 15-minute warm-up. Like, I ask people how they're doing. Like, we sit down and talk and, like, just see how their weekend was, if it's on a Monday, or what they're doing this weekend, if it's on a Friday, how they're feeling in between. Just to basically communicate with them, get to see how they're feeling, and getting some feedback in regards to the program as well. And the actual program itself, I'll typically use Dan John's method of push, pull, hinge, squat, carry, just because it's so simple to execute. And then we'll add, say, 2 or 3 core exercises in between that, or I'll add like some of the FRC principles like hip cars, just to try to get movement quality to improve on people. But I always use that infrastructure of just trying to make sure I get some upper body pull, some upper body push, a lower body pull like a swing, squat, and then some type of carry variation. And then each month we have like a theme of the month. So I'll ask the campers, what exercise do you want to focus on this month? Typically it's something outrageous like a handstand or something like that. So we'll be like, all right, maybe not that. But what about like a pull-up or feet elevated push-up? Something along the lines where it's like, wow, that's pretty badass. I could be able to do that. And then we'll try to cater exercises based off of that goal of the month. Like if we're trying to do 5 pull-ups, for example. And then just trying to build success rather than just trying to beat them into the floor, essentially. So, again, I always use that structure. If I can hit those 5, then I'll just mix in whatever I feel is appropriate afterwards. It's typically 8 to 10 exercises, and then we'll superset it into sets of 3 or so, and then we'll do some type of 5-minute cool down.
And the music is always really good.
Yeah, each class has different preferences in regards to the music. If they don't give me an answer as to what we're listening to that day, I'll resort to putting Garth Brooks radio on until they're like, all right, I can't deal with this anymore.
9 times out of 10, I stroll in for staff lift, and it's Bon Jovi blaring on the radio.
Yeah, Bon Jovi is one of my faves. Today we had Justin Bieber and Taylor Swift. Tony didn't seem like he was the biggest fan of that, but I made sure.
Taylor Swift and I were practically neighbors. She had a house in Rhode Island.
She's great.
Yeah.
She had a house in New York too, I'm pretty sure. Could be making that up.
Most celebrities do it.
Yeah. But yeah, that's also another thing that I actually wanted to touch on. Like, believe it or not, if you just play the music they want to listen to, it just makes for a better experience whatsoever. Like my 5:30 class, they love 80s. My 6:30 class loves the 80s. So I like try to cater it to that. Whereas my 9:30 class, I see a lot more housewives. So we'll play something like Today's Hits, for example. But like just having that variety is a subtle change that changes the experience in itself.
That 9:30 class sounds like it's dropped off a lot because back when I did it, that was the metal class.
Yeah, well, I would say otherwise because they're killing it. But
I think a big misconception to like piggyback off that and to go a little further with what Connor's asking too is like a lot of people don't think that you can take what you like. Let's say, just pick one person that comes into your group training class and say, like, what would you do with them if it was just them? If you just had an hour with them, like, what's the program you would write? How would you go about it? That's a lot like how I would think about it. It was like, all right, I'm going to take this one person. What would I do with them? And you can do that with 12, 15 people at the same time. You don't have to drastically change your approach just because you're training in a group. What you have to be is super involved the entire class. As a coach, you have to know regressions and progressions like it's the back of your hand and be able to dish them out in a second based on what you're seeing.
Yeah, and without cutting you off, I think it's important to teach them too, like what a regression and a progression is, so that they understand not the scientific definition but behind it, but like what's an easier exercise for them to do, what's a tougher one once they get better at that. If you're educating your clients, they're going to be more independent on that end as well. So
yeah, absolutely. So like, I think what really differentiates group training is the quality of the coach that's running it.
Yeah.
Because if they can, take charge of the floor like you do, and change exercises on the fly. Like, you see a lot of systems out there for group training, like, we're going to use this system, like, just run these exercises over 12 weeks. And that's, like, a real prepackaged, like, bullshit, in my opinion. Like, group training is only going to be its best if you hire someone to run it, or if you run it and you have someone that can just handle that fast-paced, lots going on. I think it's fun as a coach. Like, no, you're not going to necessarily make something perfect right away.
It'll never be perfect right away.
But that should go into your programming kind of approach.
Yeah.
But there's always someone to coach. There's always something to do. So if you're starting a group training class and you already do, let's say, private training or semi-private training, then it's the same people, essentially. It's just a different price point, a different package, and a different offering. Is it going to be, the difference is the fact that they're not going to get as much personal attention.
Yeah.
Okay, big deal. They might not want it. That's why they're doing group training.
But I think that, like, a lot of facilities that do things well and kind of have good systems in place, like, maybe they offer personal training, but in the long run, I think they want to filter everyone into that group training.
And that's what I was going to say. Like, the people that have done semi-private at CSP that do transfer into a boot camp, whether it's because of their schedule and price point, anything along those lines, they're pretty much coming in on autopilot already. Like, I don't need to do much coaching with them because they have such a firm base already from the semi-private model, and they were coached really well. Where those people are usually the easiest ones that transfer into the program. So those are always great to have around.
And then you're the motivator, then you're the cheerleader, you're the person who, like, pushes them even harder. You don't necessarily have to expend as much of your energy just in, like, making sure the exercises perform correctly.
Correct.
That's when stuff really gets fun. I remember loving working the strength camps when I was an intern. At CSP, we always have an intern who tags along with you.
And it helps out so much. So, if you're watching, thanks for everything you did. Like, having an assistant there is always helps me out a lot because they'll help out with warm-ups while I'm able to talk with people and socialize at that time. And I'm honestly usually the distraction because he's trying to do a warm-up and I'm just shooting the shit with people. So, and then just having that second body there. So, you don't always have the luxury of that. Where it helps out so much because if I'm working with 12 people, I really just have to focus on 6, and we'll just flip-flop back and forth. Where he'll see 6, I'll see 6, and then we'll just bounce back and forth on that end.
Yeah, absolutely. I had something to say, but I actually completely forgot.
Well, I'll make a point that I thought was really interesting when you said that, like, you kind of take maybe one person and say, how would I train this person, and then apply it to the whole class. We were talking a little bit with Jim Laird kind of about how he runs his women's powerlifting group, and he said something similar to that, and something that I've taken with my women's powerlifting group as well, is that, like, each month is one of the lifters' months, basically, where we take what they need to work on and cater every single exercise towards them, because even though there are 7 or 8 other ladies, chances are they need to work on that stuff too.
Yeah.
So, for example, one month might be so-and-so's month, and then the next month we're going to work on so-and-so's weaknesses. And yes, we're applying one person's specific weaknesses to everybody, but like I just said, like, everybody's going to get better in the long run. So it helps that specific person feel really energized and really, and focused on, while everybody else becomes a more well-rounded lifter, or in your case, just a more well-rounded human being.
And that's kind of what helps me too, because when it's a strength camp, I have it pretty much the easy way, where if I give them anything, something new, that adaptation, they're going to improve on it right away. Whereas something with powerlifting, like you guys know a lot better than I do, you got to be a little bit more specific over a certain amount of time just to make sure that they're hitting the numbers they want to hit and whatnot. Most people come in my doors not looking at the quantitative numbers and just want overall quality of life at that end.
And that actually, that brings up a question I knew I had for you. It was somewhere buried in my brain under the barley wine. But, like,
Sincerity.
Wow. As powerlifting coaches, we kind of live and die by the 1 rep max. Like, that's what we're trying to help people get better at. For you, it might be a little bit harder to measure progress. So what kind of What kind of things do you measure? What kind of things do you keep track of to help your strength camp members know that they're getting better?
So I look more like qualitative stuff. So like I said, we do the FRC stuff. So that's trying to improve mobility. And like I'll look at someone and see what their hip movement looks like 6 weeks ago, and then just try to keep a mental note of that, and then look what it's at like 6 weeks later, just to see if they've done any improvements on that end. And little things like that, if I'm like, wow, that looks a lot better than it used to, or like even a push-up, like if their elbows are flaring out too much rather than staying tucked, little things like that, if I'm able to make a mental note of it and be like, wow, that's gotten a lot better, or you did 5 push-ups last week, now you're doing 6, that's awesome. Little things like that, if you keep doing that over and over, that's going to create that intrinsic motivation, and that's when I start to see the ball rolling with people, because a lot, the overall attendance of people that were originally there has been much more consistent in regards to like just showing up, and I think we've been able to create some type of motivation for them to get in there, whether it's me, whether it's my assistant, whoever's working with me that day. I think that's helped out a lot, just being cognizant of the little things and be like, hey, that's awesome, regardless of what it is, whether it's their hip cars got better or their deadlift hinge looks better or a swing doesn't hurt their back anymore. Things along those lines go a long way going down the road.
Sounds like also being unrelentingly positive.
Yeah. And that I got that. So unconditional positive regard. Todd Bumgarner introduced me to that. He's been a guest on here. I love Todd. But that really opened up my eyes. Like, wow, just figure out a way to find a bright spot with everything that they do. They're having a bad day. They don't want to talk to you. Like, they're still there. They're still working their ass off. So, like, at the end of the day, there's always a positive that you can find in whoever's training with you.
And you're seeing so many people first thing in the morning. You have a chance to kind of get their day started on the right note.
Yeah, it helps out, too. I've never really even thought of it that way. Thanks, Tony.
All right.
You're finished your beer, huh?
Yeah.
Speed demon.
Jeez, just coming in, setting a precedence.
Listen, the young buck, man.
C36 down the hatch.
All right, so we got a second beer.
We do.
And then we got a little bit more to talk about as well.
We
also have a beer fact.
Yeah.
We do.
So,
this is your chance to
Irish
shine.
Kate, let's see what you got with your first beer fact from Irish Kate.
All right, so as a female on this podcast, I thought I'd bring a little bit of lady love in, like, not a weird way.
Too late.
So apparently hop plants have both male and female forms. And the cones of the female plants are what's used in the brewing process, while the male hop cones are used to breed the plant. So when you see a field of hops growing, those plants are typically female. So what you're drinking, as far as hops go, are the female form of the plant.
It's
Bam.
just like in Jurassic Park, where all the dinosaurs were made to be female, so they couldn't breed and reproduce.
Nice.
But, just like you see in some West African frogs, species can spontaneously change sex in a single second. Let me finish!
Alright, go ahead,
Wow.
finish.
They can change from male to female in a single second.
Jurassic Park.
That's why you watch the movie Jurassic Park.
So wait, hold on.
The female dinosaurs turned into male dinosaurs. They made more dinosaurs. Life finds.
Is that a reptilian thing? You could go male, female, just like, hey, today I'm going to be a female.
Yeah, you see it in frogs, and they
Yeah.
used frog
That's pretty
DNA to
sick.
plug in the missing DNA in the gene sequence to make the dinosaurs.
Can we,
Watch the
can
fucking movie,
Can
man.
we
It's
pop the top on this or what?
All right.
God.
Jurassic Park.
All right, so we got
Damn it, man.
Curiosity 37. So the next installment in the Treehouse Curiosity series. This might also be the first show where we've done 2 Treehouse beers.
It might be.
2 Treehouse beers, and it's also got to be I think, the first time in Treehouse history they released the Curiosity series back-to-back days.
We already touched on
Yeah.
that.
That's why
That's
we're.
when you were downstairs.
Oh, shit.
It's alright.
But let me just say, Kate,
Maybe
that was a pretty good beer fact.
That was a good beer
That's
This
fact.
is a pretty bad beer pour.
And you stumbled on your words way fewer times than Irish Josh. There were times where I was
He
going
didn't
back
stumble,
and I
we just couldn't understand.
I would be like editing the podcast on like a Thursday morning and listening back and be like, Josh, what the fuck were you saying?
Still love him though. He's a great guy.
We love Josh.
It's probably
so much.
4
We
a.m.
miss you,
over there
buddy.
right now.
So I'm just have you had this already? Yes.
I've had
Have you
this
had
before.
this yet?
No, I haven't had either of these.
Well,
I had it too.
Prepare yourself.
yeah.
Dig in, boys.
I did
Cheers.
see you guys.
Yeah,
you
what's
guys
going
did
on
rate
here?
it a 4.75. So
I also rated Pile of Crowns a 5, and you guys thought that was wrong.
Didn't you rate this a 5 too?
God, this is good.
I think this was 4.75.
Wow.
Guys, follow me on Untapped. I don't know my username, but
Easy, bud.
look Frank Duffy.
We don't have a written script, but there's an unwritten script, and you're jumping the gun.
Oh, my
That's
bad.
tasty.
So, in my head, Curiosity 36 is very like alter ego Julius-esque. This green, exactly.
Yeah.
And green is my favorite. I know that back when we had the top 10, I put Julius number 1. I was young, I was uneducated, perhaps a little emotional in my decisions. But green to this day is still my favorite Treehouse beer.
So
And
that
this-
was like a peer pressure thing, then. You were bullied into picking Julius.
No, because dickhead over here put Julius like
Didn't you
7
put,
on
like,
his list.
dick-
Yeah.
Didn't you put Substance like your top 10?
Listen, my top 10 is still being shared around the internet as
The greatest of all
absolute
time
truth.
The Mount Rushmore
of beers.
minus 6.
Yeah, it's like green but whatever creates that bubblegum tasting green is like a little subdued, and I like that.
This is what I'm talking about. I don't taste bubblegum in any beer I've ever had.
You know who was the first person to tell us that green tasted like bubblegum was
Irish Josh.
Irish
He was
Josh.
right.
Yeah.
But I mean, you would expect an Irish guy to know his green beer.
Yeah, great palate, that young man.
Yeah, what a guy. Miss
That's
you, bud.
debatable, but he did call
How
it
much
good.
did you get to know that one?
Well, and then when I went and looked on Untapped, bubblegum is an actual beer term.
Yeah.
So
You probably looked that up.
kudos. Maybe he did.
Yeah, he was like, oh, I gotta prepare and study for this. And he's starting rambling and
Yeah,
shit. He just hit the jackpot on that one.
He didn't do a
Yeah.
lot of homework.
I mean,
for
we don't mean to mention Irish Josh so many times when he's
Yeah.
last night as the producer.
But you guys have like badmouthed him. I thought he did a solid job the time I was here.
He did do a solid job.
Yeah.
Part of being the producer is you're gonna take your wax.
You're right. All right.
Yeah.
I respect
It's
it.
like being Spaz on WAAF.
The head coach. You don't celebrate when you win,
Yeah.
but you take the heat when you lose.
Yep.
So, producer,
Very true.
to
Very
stop
true.
the hidden legend of the.
What are we going to talk about? We got
All right, so the other thing I want to talk about from like a group training standpoint is when you're you have an hour to work with these people, and you want to introduce new exercises. I had a certain philosophy on how I like to do it based on the structure. Do you have a certain way that you like to introduce a new exercise
Yeah.
into so that it's efficient?
Yeah. So actually, in May I had like one or two of them say like, "Hey, we want to learn Turkish get-ups." I was like, "Oh shit, I don't have an exercise
I've
for
been like,
them."
get out.
Yeah.
There's the door.
So-
Get up.
Tony's programmed Turkish get-ups for me before, but that's
You
besides
don't,
the
you don't
point.
say that.
But yeah, exactly.
I'm going to edit that out.
But so I was like, all right, let's do a get up. Screw it, whatever. So the first thing was like breaking down the get up. So like people say it's 14 steps, but however many steps it is, it's like you got to go up and down.
7 up, 7 down.
You got to go up and down, dude.
This is why I can't.
7.
All right,
Regret-
whatever.
I'm going to sit this one out.
So I was like, all right, week 1 we're gonna do just the quarter, learn how to get up to your hand. Then the second one was doing half of a get up. Week 3 was doing a full one unloaded, and week 4 was doing a full one. And now we'll do that with more of our complex exercises, trying to find more of a regression for it. So an example would be like a 2 kettlebell rack front squat. So you take the 2 kettlebells. Essentially, what I'll teach people is just a rack carry to start, where they have 2 kettlebells here, and just learn how to walk down and back in like our turf area, just so that they make sure that they're staying packed, understanding the concept of the upper body tension. And then I'll take that same concept with any exercise we do. So 2 kettlebell swing, learn a kettlebell swing first. Then once you get good with 1 kettlebell, add 2. Once you get good with that, kettlebell clean. Then that, we haven't snatched yet, but maybe one day we'll get to that point. But for now, those are my 3. And then again, coming back to what I said, understanding your regressions and progressions to every exercise, so that whatever you put, you'll always be able to modify it based off the person's needs. Touch on?
Yeah.
And when I first knew you, kind of your identity, you were kind of a kettlebell guy.
Yeah, I was
That's
the
kinda your-
kettlebell
the
guy.
kettlebell guy. Yep.
Now I'm like the kin stretch guy, even though I'm not even the most mobile one on our staff. So
But,
Those honors go to me.
Greg
Greg is very nimble.
But But,
First one to pull 2 hamstrings in the same night at beer league softball.
They're
I don't know
not
if you-
pulled. They're not pulled because I know how to manage this fine-tuned system, and
Yep.
I haven't missed a day of training.
That's
and
it.
you're also
Unlike
the.
some other people here who miss multiple days of training.
Anyways, we won't go there.
Oh, shit.
Frank's the only guy sitting at this table that's ever pulled a hamstring bad enough to have actual
Bruise.
bruising.
Yeah.
I was back in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was what a little.
Hip cars.
Yeah, God bless the cars.
It's like a ground ball back to the pitcher.
No, it was the game we forfeited. So I don't know if this story's been told on the podcast. I forgot who it was. I think it might have been you. I think you hit a ball in the gap. And I was on first, like blazing speed. First, I hit third base and I just felt it pop. I'm like, oh shit. Still scored the run, but because of Tony, who was using a composite bat and pulled one out, we ended up forfeiting that game. So
All right.
I blew out my hamstring for essentially no reason.
So first of all, had you been running with me at bat, you'd have just had to jog home. You wouldn't have to run
This
that
is
hard
true.
because I hit a ball 450 feet to left center. And what
350.
you might have forgotten was right before I hit that home run, this guy right here hit a ball so hard at the first baseman that they actually defecated in their pants. They were scared so bad.
It was dripping
Oh,
on the field.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I hit him in the teeth, but it hit his glove instead.
I get you.
Where
Yeah.
where were we with that?
Well, we're just going to go back to the talking about how to introduce
A lot
new
of tangents.
exercises.
A lot of tangents.
By no means is this the best way or anything like that, but one way I used to think about it when I did the group training was even from a programming standpoint. So you alluded to the fact that the way you guys are running it now, you have more strength days on Monday and Friday, and a metabolic day on Wednesday. So even from a programming standpoint, you can think about when is the more appropriate time to introduce a new exercise. And so obviously on a Wednesday, a more metabolic day where you have shorter rest intervals and people are kind of buzzing around, it would probably be the least likely time to introduce a new exercise because you just don't have the time to work with people and get their technique better.
At the same token, though, on our Wednesdays, we don't do as much. So the actual workout itself is actually a little bit shorter. So we'll do like 30 to 35 minutes of work on top of the warm-up, which leaves about 10 minutes at the end for like a cool-down. Whether that's me doing kin stretch type stuff or like breaking down an exercise, we'll use that 10 minutes as like a low intensity, like learning a new movement or working on our mobility. So things along those lines. So I try to separate some time towards the end to allow for us to make new adaptations.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, so if you're setting up a group class, there's a lot of like variables obviously to think about. I mean, you have your normal training variables. So your training variables are going to be things like intensity, volume, the density of the training. What else am I forgetting?
Volume, intensity, density.
Rest, like that's big
Or
stuff.
density.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like there's one more, but it's not coming to my head right now because I've already drank 3 beers.
And my brain is oozing out my ears. It's so
It's
hot.
also really hot.
Yeah.
But
all right.
basically, like when you set up your class, I mean, you're going to want to think about those 3 variables. So you're going to have, you're going to have the volume and the intensity, which volume obviously being the amount of work that you're doing, intensity being how hard it is or like the weight on the bar. Density is going to be a huge part of anything that you're doing probably in a group class setting. And it, with what we're talking about as far as how much work you can do in a certain amount of time. So if on a day where you're doing more strength and you're thinking about playing with variables like volume and intensity a little bit more, that might be the best time to introduce a new exercise where you can stop someone and maybe that day isn't quite as big of a training effect for them because they need to learn how to deadlift or something like
And
that.
yeah, exactly. And it also depends on what week of that month we're on. So like a week 3 is typically going to be our heavy week. That's the week I'm probably not going to introduce anything new. Whereas week 1 and 2, I'll treat as like an introductory phase. It's like, hey, if we're working on pull-ups this month, we'll use exercise X, Y, or Z. This is how you're going to improve your pull-up, and then that's a new introduction to learning the actual pull-up itself, whether it's a hollow body hold or things along those lines. They won't kill you, but at the same time, we're not loading up the intensity with all the other exercises to make it like, wow, that was super hard. Like I wanted to create that success for them by giving them an easy way to introduce the new exercise.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of new exercises, something that I think that you brought to the table that's been relatively new to most of us at CSP and definitely the clients is some of the FRC stuff that you introduced. So can you explain maybe to the audience who might not know, like maybe a little bit, what is FRC? Where did you learn about it, and how has it found its way into your programming?
So FRC, functional range conditioning, is essentially a movement system that works on learning how to expand and control mobility, because there's this misconception that a mobilization drill is a mobility drill, where in reality, if you think of mobility, it's a training quality just like strength, power, muscular endurance, things along those lines. So for you to make it any type of adaptation, there has to be some type of force input to allow that adaptation to occur. Just like deadlifting. If you're deadlifting 135 on day one, slowly over time, progressive overload is going to allow you to improve that. So 135 becomes 140, 140 when it becomes 145, so on and so forth. Same thing with mobility. If I'm able to figure out what my limitations are in regards to mobility, I can start to program exercises better to a client or to myself personally, because this system has been the biggest game changer for myself, where I figure out what my limitations are, set myself up for exercises that'll create some type of high intensity environment, and then from there I start to see adaptations over time. So an example of it is when we say CARs, controlled articular rotations. That's us essentially taking a joint through its full range of motion every single day. So what that does, I like to tell people that it's like brushing your teeth. Like if you do that every single day, you'll keep the health of that joint just as healthy as your teeth, hopefully, right? So the limitations with that are if anyone with any type of bony structures that create impingement, where we're trying to avoid full range of motion just because that could irritate whatever's going on. But for the most part, we want to take every single joint through its full range of motion under some type of voluntary muscular contraction, just to make sure that we're keeping the joint healthy and lubricated throughout our movements, regardless of what it is. So FRC is essentially like a prerequisite to any type of training you do, whether it's powerlifting, whether it's throwing a baseball, anything along those lines.
Yeah, and believe it or not, I let this goon write my warm-ups these days. And
you're nimble now, man.
Things are going good, minus one idiotic deadlifting hip injury, but definitely seeing improvements in shoulder, ankle, hip, kind of all the big stuff. And it's been very,
Frank, move back. Sorry.
You're too close, man.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
I really...
I cut everyone off.
you know,
You cut people off and then say, sorry to cut you off. Sorry.
You guys aren't good at this game, by the way. It's hot as hell.
Actually, we're better at this game because we know how to pace ourselves.
Yeah, well, here,
tired.
Tony likes his beers lukewarm for some reason. Because you're a man.
Grown-ass man.
Grown-ass man, that's your
man, I'm 40. But, sometimes, like, powerlifting is so like, simple and barbaric sometimes. You squat, you bench, you deadlift, or, you can make it complicated if you want, but in the end, it's very simple. It was super refreshing to learn something like incredibly new and really suck at something for a change. Not that I suck at lots of things. Don't get me wrong on that, but
you're not good at a lot of stuff.
It's really bad, but exceptionally bad at some of the FRC stuff. And it was fun to kind of to learn my way through it and be able to take what I've learned and apply it to clients and stuff. So. I think that's something really cool that you've brought to the table since you joined the team at CSP.
Yeah, that's my experience with it too. Like I was squatting, always had hip pain or some degree of like back pain while squatting. It was like, oh, let me go get a pair of Olympic lifting shoes. That'll fix everything. But then what I realized over time was like, oh, my ankle sucks, my hip sucks, my spine sucks. If I'm just replacing all those issues with just a pair of shoes, I'm just using some type of crutch, where in reality I should try to focus on improving those first before going into a squat. So now that I've basically gotten better with all those, now hopefully this guy starts to add some front squats back into the programming, and then we'll monitor it from there. So it's figuring out what your deficiencies are, and then trying to improve on that. Because one of the mottos of FRC is joint independence before joint interdependence. So essentially my hip, my ankle, my spine should all work efficiently before I put them all into a system like a squat, because all three of those joints are going to be loaded when you do any type of squat. So they should work on their own well first before you start to load it.
Yeah. There's two things, especially went to FRC a long time ago, and had a little bit of trouble personally like applying it right away.
Yeah.
I think also the whole system has come a long way since the when
Yeah,
it
I
wins.
think that's like it changes every single time they do it.
Yeah, so I think it's like a little bit more approachable now. It's a little bit more applicable. No, not more applicable, but a little bit more approachable. But you know, the two observations I have, what I like about it is, one, I think there's some people out there who have pretty good requisite mobility for what they want to do, and they cover a lot of their bases. And I've always been a big fan of just saying, well, if you train exercises through a full range of motion, loaded exercises, you'll have a pretty good mobility for life. And I feel like as much as I get poked fun at sometimes, I have pretty good requisite mobility just through training things like when I squat, taking it through a full range of motion, or other exercises through a full range of motion. And even as I've got bigger and stiffer, I've never stopped taking things to full range of motion like some people do when they get bigger and stiffer.
Well, that's the goal. Like, just because you're bigger, that doesn't change the anatomical structure of your bone or your hip capsule or things like that. So the articulation stays the same. You get more dense with every connective tissue you have in your body, but that shouldn't limit the range of motion that you do have.
Exactly, and I think the reason that works well, you think people like Olympic lifters, even some power lifters to some standpoint, is the tension part of it, which is a big part of the FRC. Is it's not just passively gaining this range of motion or leveraging it again. A lot of the mobility drills you see are leveraging your a limb against the floor or a limb against a fixed object so that you can passively push into it to gain mobility, but it's not really controlled mobility. If we're going to look at it under the definition that like mobility is a range of motion in which you have full control of. So the idea of taking these joints through a range of motion with a lot of tension, I think is something smart and something that makes sense. Yeah.
That's one of the misconceptions too, though. Like, not everything about FRC has to be 100% all the time. What we do with FRC is when you initially go to the cert and learn how to do it, everything's 100% because you've never done it before. That's your natural instinct to squeeze everything as hard as you can. In reality, though, there's a continuum. Like, you shouldn't do everything 100% in regards to the mobility exercises, simply because eventually that's going to be taxing on your nervous system. Whether there's external load or not, we like to correlate that with all right, that's like you deadlifting your 1 rep max every single day. So it's learning how to scale that back. So when I warm up or do any of my hip cars, if I'm about to train, then I'm doing 30 to 50% as tight as I possibly could get through my body. When you first wake up, or a rehab standpoint, you're going even less intense than that. Or if you're using it as a training stimulus, that's when you go above that 50% threshold and start to apply it to a program. And that's when you'll start to see oh, my hip capsule is feeling better because I'm squeezing harder. But essentially, you're using that as a C1, C2 exercise at that point, where it's an actual training exercise.
I mean, is it safe to say if I went and just grabbed some random person off the street, never trained before, I could train their 1 rep max every day because their 1 rep max is not a true. At that point, it's not a true sign of what
their outputs are too low.
Their outputs are too low. Yeah. So same thing with FRC. Even though day one it might be tough for me to do some of the FRC drills, and I might be working at 100%. I could train 100% daily and then as you get better with FRC stuff, obviously 100% starts to. What was 100% starts to feel more like 50, and you're not going to ramp it up.
Yeah, because people also learn the idea of irradiation, so building tension. So the first time they do it, they're squeezing everything as hard as they can, just because that's how you're going to initially teach it. And then from there, it's all right, just back off of that a little bit. Once they start to grasp it and understand what the goal of a hip car is, they take a full joint through its full range of motion with some type of contraction. And it's all right, once you get the idea of that, just back off of it a little bit. Don't squeeze as hard, just get the joint moving. Okay? So you initially teach it hard, pretty much like a deadlift, essentially. If you're teaching someone how to build tension, whether you're trying to pull the bar away from them or things along those lines, they're probably squeezing pretty hard with it.
Yeah. So
building that initial tension and teach them hey, that's the context you want when you initially do this, I think is the best way to attack that.
Cool. And then the second thing I like about it is, at least when I've written programs, it's offered me what I would say is a better option for people that do already have good range of motion. To just exhibit control of it. So we get a fair amount of athletes. A lot of our female athletes are ones that come to mind that already have pretty good range of motion, like passively. At least I could put them on a table and take them through really good range of motion. Where our normal mobility drills, either I just didn't do before, or we did it and it was like just going through the motions. Whereas adding, even 50-60% tension through a full range of motion while we have to stabilize
it's hard.
Core,
it's hard,
harder, but it's more productive too.
And the beauty of it is like you could take your 10 exercise warm up and sliver it down into like 4 or 5 exercises. You hit your main rocks, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, I feel like I'm ready to deadlift the house. So like that's what I've seen. I don't know how you feel in regards to it, but.
And one thing that I love that you're able to implement, and you can implement it with a lot of exercises, but FRC seems to cater really well to this, is environmental cues that help people get the drills right. So, for example, doing like a quadruped hip car and putting like something on their lower back, like a foam roller or something that like, if you're moving through your lumbar spine as well as your hip, like that roller's going to fall off. Or like doing some of your hip extension stuff, like putting a baseball between like your calf and your hamstring, making sure that you're not substituting other motions for hip extension.
Or just, even like there's ways to block the lumbar spine too. Like it's like, all right, put them in that position and teach them like, hey, this is hip extension, this is lumbar extension. Like just putting people in positions to build success. That's what I'm trying to do with all the FRC exercises. But at the same time, challenging them to some degree at the same point.
Yeah, there's a huge degree of awareness that I feel that comes with it that I personally wasn't able to recognize with a lot of more like conventional mobility drills. Like not until I started doing like prone hip cars did I realize that my hip extension on my left side sucks so bad.
The beauty of it is all of them are pretty much triplanar. So you're hitting sagittal plane, you're getting some type of frontal movement, but then the big one is transverse plane because everything's some type of rotation. Whether it's your forearm rotating, whether it's your hip rotating, that's the one we kind of missed the boat on with any type of mobility drill, I would say. Where if you take the joint through its full range of motion, you're probably going to hit all 3 planes of motion at some point during that range of motion.
Yeah. I mean, I think since you've come on staff at CSP and we've, you've put it into action, it helped me realize that like, all right, I fucked up a little bit. Like I got this information and I couldn't figure out how to use it, and I think the funny part about it is this is what I mean as far as like they've made it more approachable is I think the way the information was delivered to me the first time I got it, I had a trouble
figuring out
where it fits in, and then in reality, watching you put it in, it's like this is actually more simple than a lot of the mobility drills that we use. Like this is pretty much just taking good, solid stability measures as far as what you're going to do with the rest of your body. Just taking a joint through its full range of motion. It's like it's not rocket science. You know what I mean? Like
no, that's the whole thing about that weekend because they hit you with the whole anatomy side and the whole like hands-on side, where it's like so much at once, and then you're like, holy shit, how do I apply this? And then like you start to play around with different like when I first did it, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Like it was like, oh, I'm gonna do a hip car here, I'm gonna do a pals rails there, I'm gonna pals rails this joint. It's like I didn't know what I was doing, but it's like, wait a minute, this is starting to make sense. The cars I use to figure out what joints suck, improve that joint with the other branches of the system. And it's like I'm starting to see some change now, where if you just go into that and you don't start to apply it right away after, then it makes it a lot harder to figure out like, well, where does this fit in the system? So with most of our clients, I'm literally just doing cars, some type of end range liftoff to learn how to control end ranges of motion. And that's pretty much it. We'll do some type of cool down with like a pals rails contraction, but I don't really prescribe those much.
Yeah, and I think you can call it a system, if you want. Obviously, it's been, put out there by Dr. Spina. But it actually, and I think this is a testament to anything that's good, it leaves a lot of room for anyone to be creative with it.
Yeah.
You can create your own end range
That's why I love it.
Create your own, pals and rails.
Yeah, that's why I love it because it's like they're just giving you concepts. It's not like this is a set of exercises. You do this one first, this one second, this one third. It's like no, these are the principles behind like physiology. You're not going to change the laws of how the body works, but this is how you can start to implement it the right way. And then you just go off and you're on your own creative stuff from there. And the best part about it is once you take the cert, you're in that network, and people are so smart that have taken it. Like they come up with their own exercise. Like, wow, how did I not think of that going into this?
Yeah.
And sometimes I think at CSP we might be a little bit jaded because of the baseball population we tend to work with, which lends itself to hypermobility. We tend to see a lot of athletes with excessive shoulder range of motion and just kind of twist themselves into all these crazy positions. But when it really comes down to it, would you say that a lot of the 9 to 5 workers that you deal with in strength camp just need more mobility?
Yeah.
Kind of a softball question right there.
Pretty,
but
I mean, that's
people,
that
more people are stiff
Yeah.
than they are hypermobile when you're talking about general population. So this just seems like such a natural thing to use with the people that you're training.
I'll take it a step further and say that even before mobility, people need more flexibility. Like we like as an industry, we've gotten so caught up in the idea of stability, like, oh, we need to stabilize more joints, we need to stabilize more. But in reality, with our 9 to 5ers, most people aren't taking that joint through its full range of motion. So you're thinking of the person that sits at the desk 9 hours a day.
9 days a week.
9 days a week. 9 days a week.
I've been looking for those 2 days. Where the fuck did you find them?
They're there. So that's a person where if I could get them into some type of thoracic extension exercise, I'm be like, hey, hold that for 2 minutes. 2 minutes greater than that. Because no one's ever gotten flexible holding a stretch for 10 seconds. You look at a ballerina, you look at any type of gymnast, they hold that stretch for 2 minutes, upwards of 5 minutes. That's when you start to make physiological changes to your stretch adaptation. You can't get flexible without doing that initially. I know it sucks, but if you can create that flexibility, then you're also going to be able to improve your mobility threshold because they're two different training stimuluses.
Absolutely.
Stimuli, whatever.
I paid a shitload of money for people to teach me how to say and write words.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, back when I originally took that course, the other thing I've noticed is, like, just it's just gotten better. Like, there used to be no mention about what the rest of your body was doing. It was like, let me just take this hip through its full range of motion, regardless of what's happening at, the lumbar spine or anything like that. And now it's like, all right, let me use a wall to make sure I can get some stability, to brace my core, to make sure that the only thing moving here is the hip.
And they still teach it where you're like holding on to something where there's not much feedback. But that's when the beauty of the whole network. It's like, hey, someone came up with putting the hands on the wall. Someone came up with quadruped. Someone came up with prone. Like, these aren't things that I created. Like
Right. Yeah. No. I'm super happy that you brought it back to the table because all the information was like still in my head, and I was just like, I at the time just had a lot of
and like
stuff on my new stuff anyways that was being used.
And like I'll always go back to the lectures, like the anatomy lectures, and watch them. Like, this just makes so much sense. Like, there's no reason to not apply any parts of this system when they're appropriate.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, like with the powerlifting that I do, powerlifting that you do, the power lifters we work with, like, even if you're taking a squat through a full range of motion, that still leaves the upper half. Bench pressing doesn't put the shoulders through a huge range of motion. Deadlifting, if you're doing it right, doesn't take many things through. You're not getting to end range at most of your joints. So I just think it fills that gap.
Or just don't have much.
Well, so it's giving you something that you just don't experience in your day-to-day training.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So whereas throwing a baseball certainly gets you in a lot of end ranges. Swimming with certain strokes gets you in certain end ranges, but for the powerlifting population, you just don't spend a lot of time there. So filling in that gap with an idea of movement that specializes in end ranges and expanding those and gaining control of them, it really struck a chord with me when you started implementing that stuff.
So, like, you're just making your threshold wider on both ends, whether it's a shortened range of motion or a lengthened range of motion. The more mobility you can control in that threshold why wouldn't you take that? It's like a bank account. Try to put as much in there as possible.
Straight cash, homie.
That's it. And in the first hour, they literally say you'll always regret not training the position you get injured in. So Dre said that.
That's what I was gonna say,
So hip extension for me, it was like, I realized after I pulled my hamstring, my left side sucks. I should probably learn how to extend my hip better. So it's like when you figure out you have that oh shit moment, like, oh, I just hurt myself in this position. I should probably learn how to train that position. That was the whole like eye opener for me. It's like, oh, if we're getting hurt like UCL or shoulder, whatever it is, because we don't have internal rotation, maybe we should learn how to train that better, or anything along those lines in regards to whatever joint position you're putting it into.
Yeah.
Or you just hit bombs and you don't got to run that.
That's it.
That's true.
That's
But
it.
yeah, I remember that was being a big takeaway from that course for me was like, obviously there's lots of systems out there, and you know, even in a talk today with some of our interns, it's not about one system being better than the other. It's really about finding the right intervention for the right person. Whereas, you know, like I know, you know, Mike Ranfone is a guy that's where I went to go to my first to the FRC.
Yeah.
The first time I had an athlete who I felt like, okay, I have all his range of motion. He's super powerful. He's super explosive.
That's the best news I've
don't.
had all day.
He's super powerful. He's super explosive.
Are you grabbing another one?
Matt Hinckley's drinking his C37 as we speak, guys. Oh, let's go.
You live here.
How about that? But he got injured a lot on the football field because he would get thrown into end ranges. And at the time, I hadn't had a lot of experience with FRC, but it was like, all right, I remember going to this course, and I know that this seems like the right intervention for this person. Helped him out a lot. You know, if I was training a fighter, you know, like mixed martial arts, BJJ, something like that, great intervention.
Agree, 100%.
You know, does it have application to other sports? Yes. Is it the end? Nothing's the end all to be all, I guess is my point. You know, you do a little bit of everything. You know, powerlifting isn't necessarily a sport that puts you in a lot of end ranges all the time. Should you train them? Yes, especially if you're a powerlifter who takes on other recreational
we know what we have to
sports.
do. It's whether you choose to do it or not.
Yeah,
Right.
we're
well
a
aware.
softball team full of powerlifters.
Yeah, like we haven't warmed up before a softball game yet.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't help us.
And we're losing to a bunch of 50-year-old motherfuckers who drive minivans, you know?
That's true. You know what? I actually like vans. I'm thinking about starting to get my vans.
It's spacious. Yeah, a lot of people.
I learned to drive on a Pontiac Montana.
I learned on a I forgot what it was, Ford Windstar or something like that. Yeah,
It was short-lived. It was like the Pontiac Trans Am, and very quickly, like,
I learned how to drive.
Dad, if you're watching, what did I learn how to drive on minivan wise?
I did a purple Dodge Caravan for me.
There we go.
And
like a
the
Ford
first time
Windstar
I
for
ever
me
tried
or
to
something
park
like
it in my parents' garage, I cut it too sharp and just dented the whole sliding door.
I got into learn how to park. I put a dent in the car.
It's probably that caravan probably looked like the eggplant emoji on the iPhone. That's probably what it looked like.
Same shade.
Just a driving eggplant parm food truck.
But yeah, coming back to the whole FRC thing, like, it's just another tool in the toolkit. Like
it's great. Yeah.
There's an assessment course now that I haven't taken that I plan on taking that goes into like how to assess for where to put people in. But like right now, I use FMS for that. I've worked with 4 different Strong First instructors at Iron Lion when I was working there. So like there's different tools in the toolbox that I like to apply to everything I do, whether it's assessment, coaching, teaching, I guess. Whatever the situation is, I try to find whatever tool I know and try to use that to the best of my ability.
All right, Frank, so where can people find out more? Well, since we talked about a lot, where can they find out first more information about FRC and functional range conditioning?
So, again, no commission. FunctionalAnatomySeminars.com breaks down all the FRC stuff. There's a ton of great resources online. I hope to think mine's one of them on Instagram. Dr. Andrea Ospina is another one. Dewey Nielsen's great. My business partner for Par 4 Performance, Joe Gambino, he does a great job with FRC stuff.
Joe.
Yeah. Not strong, but mobile. So, but yeah, if you go through those sources, you'll be able to figure out where the branch is, and like the network expands much deeper than that. But if you can find those sources and start to follow those and learn more about it, it'll help you out in the long run. I guarantee that.
All right, and if for some god-awful reason people want to hear more from you, where do they go?
You go to my Instagram, where I'm the most active, Frank Duffy Fitness. My website is frankduffyfitness.com. And then I'm also doing a virtual kin stretch group through Par 4 Performance, which is my online resource with Joe Gambino, who I just mentioned, where we're doing a weekly virtual kin stretch class. You can look up the details through the website itself. I think that's it for me.
Okay. And the thing that Frank spoiled towards the beginning of the show, which was going to replace the top 10.
Unbelievable.
Sorry, guys. Just
well,
playing
so-
checkers. I'm playing chess.
I think we're playing chess.
No,
Fine,
because
I'm playing sorry.
You're playing cornhole.
Go to jail.
Go to jail.
So we're not doing the top 10 anymore because it's a lot of cans to keep in the Strength House office. Start to smell like rank beer. Plus,
Greg is smashing
it's a
cans
lot to
over his
do.
head.
I failed to smash a can on my head. I just basically took a piece of steel. So if you're not familiar with the application on your phone, Untapped, UNTAPPD, great application for logging in the different kind of beers that you drink. Photos are involved. Ratings between 1 and 5. We are all on Untapped, and you can follow along all the beers that we drink. And I don't want to say every day, but
Pretty much every day.
you can follow along all the beers we drink at various days throughout the year.
And I'll follow up on a text I sent you guys the other day. So sometimes I'll check Untapped like in the middle of the day, like
I was going to say that.
like 10 a.m., 11 a.m., and I'll look and I'll be really disappointed that nobody I know has started drinking yet. I'm like, what the fuck are all the beers?
I had one at 3 today. It was like, I'll post this later on.
5 o'clock somewhere.
So we rank all our beers on Untapped. My personal handle is Strength House Greg. Tony?
I'm Bonvec01, so BONVEC01. That was also my old AOL instant messenger handle if you want to add me on there.
And to be honest, I don't know mine, and I don't know how to add people. But they've...
Andy, as you know, is terrible
Yeah.
rankings. So
I'm pretty generous with my rankings. I probably should be a little stricter.
even
but
Irish Kate's on there.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty
sure
you're
yours
my
is
most recent
You're
friend.
Frank Duffy Fitness.
There we go. Frank Duffy
Shocking.
Fitness.
Didn't see that
Listen,
one coming.
constant
If he's
throughout.
nothing else, he is consistent,
Yes.
folks.
Yeah.
Frank.
Yeah, what's great about Untapped is that it's a really good resource to find out what great beers are around you.
It's actually a great app.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to be sponsored by Untapped. But it's cool, like, you can find out venues near you. You can even find out where to buy a beer if you see it.
I'm pretty sure they do like festivals, like events and stuff
Events that are near you. It's actually a really great app. So we don't have any sponsors. No one does anything for us.
All in house.
We do this out of our love for
Love of the
fitness and love for beer. They don't have to be mutually exclusive.
No, but definitely reach out to us follow us on Untapped. We rate all the beers there. We take pictures of them. And that's about it. I do want to announce that we do have some excellent guests lined up for the next few weeks. We're going to be on the podcast with John Gaglione next week. Owns a big-time powerlifting gym in Long Island.
Ward Park, ball up.
Ward Park.
It's ball up Ward Park, Zach. You got it in the vice versa. One of the worst spike ball cheaters of all time.
He's top 10.
We have some other
Top 5.
world record powerlifters coming on the show. That won't spoil who those are yet. But we have some big time guests coming up. So check out the Instagram, Facebook. Keep track of the Strength House.
So,
Any other announcements?
I'm going to be the weakest guest for a while.
Actually, I got one more announcement after you.
All time.
Well, I was going to say Optimizing the Big Three seminar, August 20th at Cressey Sports Performance in Hudson, Massachusetts.
I can count the seats on almost one hand. We have 6 seats left.
6 seats left. Don't miss out. You're going to get to hang out with us and at some point probably get to drink some beers with us. So
If you get there on Friday, even though the seminar is on a Sunday, I guarantee you we will lift together and we will drive to Treehouse.
Ooh.
not many people get to experience that.
Bonus.
I work till 5:30, but I'll meet up with you guys afterwards.
We'll help you avoid Frank. No.
True story.
And if you enjoy the show, please iTunes, YouTube, subscribe, leave us a rating. It helps our show reach more people. If you like what we're doing, help us out, rating or review. And we'll plan to see you next week with another New Yorker.
Another New
Long
York.
Island,
Back
Strong
show.
Island, baby.
Son of a bitch.
Wrong Island. We got Johnny Gags in the house, so we will see you guys next week. Thank you, Irish Kate, for your first night as the producer and Beer Fact deliverer.
That's it.
And we are out.
Peace out.
Peace.
Cheers.
Later, guys.